Clashes between riot police and protesters continued into the early hours of the morning. Well, despite the tear gas and water cannon, Prime Minister Erdogan is still expected to meet protest leaders later.
A new day in Istanbul and relative calm in the city's Taksim Square. But ample evidence too of the violent confrontations the night before. Fresh police officers arrived to replace those left exhausted. Only hours earlier they'd been caught up in running battles with demonstrators. On one side, protesters determined to stay put and to voice their anger at what they say is the government's increasingly authoritarian stance. On the other, riot police determined to make them leave. Taksim Square was cleared, but some people took refuge in nearby Gezi Park.
Turks have been protesting against a plan to redevelop the park. The Istanbul demonstration started 2 weeks ago. Soon, people in other cities joined in to protest against what they called Erdogan's authoritarian style. The Prime Minister hasn't backed down in the face of the anti-government movement, but he has agreed to meet protest leaders on Wednesday.
Istanbul's Taksim Square is filled with tear gas as Turkish riot police surprise anti-government protesters with a major show of force to clear the area. Until just before dawn, officers fought running battles with pockets of protesters, ratcheting up tensions almost 2 weeks after the demonstrations began. It appears the patience of Turkey's Prime Minister and his government has run out. Until the Taksim area is totally cleared from the marginal groups and reopened to the public, we will continue to take action day and night. And I want everyone to help our police while we take these measures.
His message, as he's been saying over the last 2 days, that he's willing to have this dialogue with the peaceful protesters as long as their demands are democratic. You know, calling a government to resign is not sufficient by itself for a government to go, obviously. This is an elected government. People have been talking about the government having an authoritarian streak, the Prime Minister becoming almost a dictator. You know, that kind of accusation is completely false, baseless. The Turkey has internationally recognized elections. The most recent election was held in 2011. The Prime Minister was elected with 50% of the vote. But the picture people are trying to, and some of the media, I have to say, are trying to depict is as if you have a dictatorship in Turkey, as if all life has come to a halt.
This is in stark contrast to statements previously made by the police, that protesters were welcome to remain in the park as long as they cleared Taksim Square. Now that the square has been retaken by police, Erdogan told Parliament today that he wants the protesters to leave Gezi Park.
I urge the young people, who I believe are there with sincere feelings, to put an end to this protest. To those who insist on continuing, my message is that this is over. We will not put up with this any longer.
The police have just cleared this section of the square. They've moved back up here. The protesters have filled in behind them. They're massing now around the water cannon vehicles. The police will let them up until a point, until they decide that that's enough, and they'll push them back down the square.
The protesters threw rocks and petrol bombs. At one point, one of the police vehicles was surrounded and set on fire. They had to use their own water cannon to put it out. We saw several officers with injuries to the head. The protesters have called for thousands to come here to help them defend their park. Neither side now is backing down. The question is what happens next.